Welcome to Harvest, African Voices and Real Sisters' new podcast. My name is Iman Childs, and I'm an African Voices board member. In our first episode, we'll be speaking with Samantha Knowles, an award-winning documentary director and this year's Real Sisters Trailblazer Award recipient. Thanks for being one of the very first guests on African Voices' new podcast. As you know, African Voices puts on the annual Real Sisters of the Diaspora Film Festival. So to kind of start off our conversation, I'd love if you could talk to me about your connection to Real Sisters and how you first found out about the film festival.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be one of the first guests. So I first got connected to Real Sisters when I did my first film. It was called Why Do You Have Black Dolls? I directed it while I was still in college. It was actually my senior honors thesis. I think it was the New York premiere, the Real Sisters Film Festival. And so I think since then, that was 13 years ago, which is wild to think about now. But it was such a wonderful, that whole experience of making that film was really my entry point into filmmaking and the film world. And Real Sisters was a huge part of that, not just because it was the New York premiere, but I had newly moved to Brooklyn. It was, it's a Brooklyn-based festival. I really got acquainted with like the larger community. It was really foundational, I think, in my career. And a fun fact, I don't even know if he knows this, but one of my mentors, Sam Pollard, who I work with now all the time, was actually doing a workshop at Real Sisters. And that's when I first kind of met him. So it was really and I was just remembering that, I saw him the other day and I was just kind of remembering that wow, this really was such a, a huge part of the film community. So it holds a really special place in my heart.
Real Sisters was actually the first film festival I got into right after college as well. So that's awesome. What year did your film screen?
I think it was 2012.
2012. Okay. I think I might have been a couple years after. So 2015 or 14.
I think it was 2012. Yeah.
Awesome. So this year you will be receiving the Real Sisters Trailblazer Award. So I'm curious, what does that mean to you?
Oh my gosh, it's incredible. I was actually shocked when Carolyn emailed me about it because it just felt so special. I think I've, again, this filmmaking industry is really a community of people, and I've looked up to so many people who have received the Trailblazer Award and who have received awards like that. And I think, when you're a filmmaker, you have your head down, you're going from project to project to project. And so I think this idea of kind of reflecting on everything that I've done and everything that I've learned since Real Sisters and celebrating as part of that community feels really, really special. And it was unexpected. So I'm just I'm so honored. Yeah, it's really incredible.
That's amazing. I know you kind of talked about this before with, Real Sisters kind of being your first foray into the film space in New York, but I'm curious today as a more established filmmaker, do you think that it's important to have spaces like Real Sisters still, and why?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think, we're in a moment where, and this has always been true, but I think especially right now where community is so important. And I think Real Sisters really, truly represents that. It's not just a place to watch films. I think I learned this really early in my career through film festivals like Real Sisters. It's not just a place where you go to watch films. It's really community based. I remember when I first screened there, I brought my family and they were so excited, and they were really excited to see how community based it felt, and it really is, kind of this community. And I see a lot of people asking, right now, what, how can we find community? How can we build community? And it really is places like Real Sisters that is that place. People talk about things like third spaces, what is accessible to people, and Real Sisters is exactly that. So I think it's a really great model for that too.
Yeah, I definitely agree, especially in this current climate. Shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to talk a bit more about some of your recent projects. I know you recently were in New Orleans, where you attended the premiere of the new Netflix series, Katrina, Come Hell and High Water. Would love to, hear more about how you got involved with the series and what was your approach to the topic, given that it's so sensitive.
Katrina Come Hell and High Water was produced by a company called Message Pictures, and they're comprised of Sam Pollard, Lisa Payne, and Geeta Ganbir. And they are incredible filmmakers, and they recently formed their company, Message Pictures. And I've worked with them all a lot in the past. And so they were approached by Netflix to create this documentary series about Hurricane Katrina, knowing that the 20-year anniversary was coming up. Geeta and Sam Pollard were collaborated with Spike Lee, 20 years ago now, on When the Levees Broke and his follow-up, If God Is Willing and the Creek Don't Rise, which were really groundbreaking documentaries, especially at the time, about Katrina. And so there's this legacy that they're part of. And, I think everybody has been really eager for them to, do something that feels like not a follow-up per se, but that was, kind of looking back on how far the city has come in the past 20 years. And because I had worked with them frequently in the past, they asked me to join the team. And of course, I was really, really honored and eager to do that. And I think our approach to the story was really committed to being rooted in the on the ground stories of the survivors. Those are the stories that I think were really important to center throughout the whole, all 3 episodes of the series. And it wasn't easy. We were all down there over multiple shoots like 2 years ago to interview them. And some people were telling their stories for the first time in many, many years. A lot of people were still traumatized by what happened, and there were a lot of tears. It was really, really difficult, but they all felt like it was really, really important to talk about. And I think the most gratifying thing for us was that for them, they said that it felt healing. It felt, it felt like this weight lifted off their shoulders, if there's such a thing. We went back to New Orleans a couple weeks ago to screen one of the episodes, and the energy in the room was really incredible and really beautiful. And I think that paired with the response that we've seen to the series, where people are emotional, they're infuriated, they're crying, and they feel for the people of New Orleans, I think that makes us feel really, really successful in the series. So I'm really honored and really proud of the series.
I know it's like difficult working in documentary to like walk that fine line of caring about the subjects but still wanting to be somewhat objective. So that's very interesting. And you said the response has been positive. Have you got that from like the premiere and also reviews and stuff, I assume, right?
Yeah, so we premiered in New Orleans the day that the show premiered on Netflix.
Okay.
And so when we premiered in New Orleans, we didn't have any of the numbers or anything on Netflix, but so all we knew was, and really what we cared about in that moment was like what the participants in the documentary were going to feel, how they were going to respond, that they wouldn't, that they'd be okay, and the response was just incredible. I mean, I have no words for how it couldn't have gone better. And they were just, really, really thankful to us, which is, wild because we were so thankful to them. They said, I really feel like part of me has healed through this, which is incredible. So that, to me, that night, I had no idea what the numbers were. And I was like, it's a success. Like I was over the moon. Then we woke up and we realized that we were number 1 on Netflix, and we stayed number 1 for 5 days. And now 2 weeks later, I think we might still be in the top 10. So that is incredible. I mean, that feels like just the cherry on top of everything else, especially because it's, it's a documentary, it's difficult subject matter. And the fact that people are watching and tuning in is, and they feel activated, they feel like they want to do something. I think that is really, really incredible to see. And we're really grateful for that. And honestly, all the credit is due to the people in the film. They're the ones who did the real work. So
it's like the best case scenario. You get the seal of approval from the people in the documentary and people are responding positively. So that's awesome. Speaking of that, I know you said like healing was a word that came up a lot for the folks you interviewed. And I'm curious, like, was that something that you all talked about in pre-production, like how to create that space?
We talked about it a lot. And again, I think what's great about the team that I worked with is that we've worked together on a lot of projects in the past, and we always, take this do no harm approach to everything we do. And so, whether it's, I've worked on a series about missing Black people and people of color. I've done a series with, people who are neurodivergent. I've done even a series about kids, which has its own kind of rules of do no harm. I think that's always our goal. And so we really wanted it to feel genuinely healing to the people we were interviewing. And I think, with me too, I think I have this mindset when I'm going into an interview that it's really, I have my set of questions. I've done a ton of research. I've gone over it a million times, but in a lot of ways, it's really led by the person I'm interviewing. So if they need to stop, if they want to move on, if they want to cut it short, and honestly, also, if they want to go long, I let them lead that. And what I found is that a lot of people wanted to go long. They were like, I need to just go back to this and I need to say this again because this was so frustrating. And to me, my job as the interviewer is to give them the space to do that. That's why I think that a lot of people afterwards, like even in the room, said like, wow, thank you. That felt really good. And that's my goal. Like, that's what I really want, because I really believe that it shouldn't feel exhausting. It should feel like they got to say what they needed to say and they got to get it out. And a lot of people, while they were telling the story, they were like really reflecting on like, wow, like it's been 20 years. And so they were really confronting all of the trauma that they've had to live with. And, it was our job to give them the space to do that. Yeah, that's definitely all really, really important.
I love that phrase you said, do no harm. That's so important. And I know you just mentioned about Harlem Ice, right? The project that you worked on with the kids. So I'd love to hear some more about that. And, how did that project come to be and what inspired you to tell that story?
So Harlem Ice, you can like hear it in my voice, is like has such a special place in my heart because it is a 5-part series for Disney Plus about a bunch of young girls who figure skate in Harlem. And they, at the time, now they're older, but at the time they ranged in age from like 14 to 17. I have to say it was show ran by Elisa Payne, who's incredible showrunner and producer, and Geeta Ganbir also executive produced that as well. So that's how I know the kind of Home Message Pictures team. And it was kind of a departure in a lot of ways from my previous work because it was about kids, it was about sports, it was really playful, it was really buoyant and fun. It's really funny. And I think in a lot of ways, we set out to tell this story of this team of young girls who are outsiders in a lot of ways in their sport. Figure skating is a largely white sport. And these girls, Harlem, their team is called Harlem Ice, and they're, a team of Black girls and girls of color. And so they really stand out. And so we were trying to tell this story about, from their POV, set in kind of their voice. And it really became, I think going in, you feel like, okay, I'm going to watch a sports documentary, but it really became this like, it's almost like a Trojan horse in a lot of ways. It's sort of like you go in thinking it's a sports documentary, but it's really about these like young girls who are just bold and unapologetic and fun. Disney really gave us the freedom to really play, in the show. So there's a lot of fun music. There's a lot of Beyonce. There are on-screen graphics, and it really just tells the story of these girls navigating, a season in their life. And, it's a coming of age story in a lot of ways. And it's just really, really fun and delightful. And if you watch, you will fall in love with these girls. Like they're just like so funny and charming and great. So that show has this very special place in my heart.
I love that. And it premiered on Disney Plus earlier this year, right?
Yeah, it premiered on Disney Plus and it's streaming. It's currently streaming on Disney Plus.
Okay. How did that partnership end up happening?
Oh my gosh, it was so long ago. So it was produced by Imagine Documentaries. Imagine approached me about the show and they were like, yeah, we have this show about, and I immediately was like, oh my gosh, this is like my dream show in a lot of ways because it was clear from very, very early on. Not only was it like in my hometown, which I don't always get to do shows that are like set in New York, but the girls, one of the things about them is that they skate to Beyonce. So from the beginning, and they really kind of, when you watch them skate, they really are performers on the ice, which I guess you could say about all ice skaters, but that is like really their like strength. Like they're performers. And so I kind of saw it as like dancing on the ice, and I grew up dancing. And I was just so excited to kind of meld all of these things together, to do a series that was like rooted in joy, about kids, had Beyonce, and that was like just had this like musicality that I haven't been able to kind of explore in my other work. And so yeah, so that's how it came about. And it was like my dream project in a lot of ways, and it was very, very fun. Hard, very hard, but very fun.
Very cool. So I know like the majority of your work has been documentaries. And I'm curious, what led you to choose documentary as your medium as a filmmaker?
It's interesting. I've actually been reflecting on that a lot because I was like, how did I get here? It goes all the way back to high school. I never grew up like, a lot of directors you'll hear about, or that I heard about growing up, they were like, I was like 4 years old and I had a camera and I was shooting my first film at 4, and then at 5 I was in my first film, like that's what you always. So like I wasn't like that. I was in high school and I had back then we had this thing called DVDs. My parents just had like all the my parents love movies, and they just had like this haphazard kind of collection of movies that I would just watch over and over again. And I think I discovered the director's commentary, and I was interested in it because I would watch the same thing over and over again. And so the director's commentary, like you could just watch the same movie, but you got to hear the insights from the director. And I was like, okay. And I remember, it's so cliche, but I remember listening to a director's commentary with Martin Scorsese, and he was talking about The Aviator and how he used camera angles to communicate like Howard Hughes's experience of OCD, I think it was. And I was like floored because I'd never, I'm like 16, 17, and I never understood that like film had its own vernacular. I didn't understand that. I took it all for granted. I didn't understand what was behind what I was watching. And so hearing that, I was like, wow, wait, it just opened up a whole new world to me. So when I was applying to school, I just decided to put film as my major. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought maybe I want to be a critic. I was really good at writing research papers, and I was in a film studies program. So instead of like, it wasn't like a film school where like it's a lot of practical knowledge, or like hands-on, I should say hands-on knowledge, because it is practical. But I was writing a lot of papers, and I did an internship at a documentary film company, and that was my first introduction. And I was like, wait, this is kind of a fusion of my strength as like a research paper writer and film. And I just was like, it was like instant. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know, it just hit me, and I had all these ideas right away, and that was the first moment where it clicked. And then since then I've just been making films.
I love that alignment. That's really great. The combination of the research with film. That makes perfect sense. Really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I felt it in the moment. I was like, oh, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But before that, I didn't. It's like I mean, it's different now because this was before streaming services. So I
Right.
didn't, at the time at least, I didn't feel like I had a ton of access to the huge variety of documentaries we have today. I think what's cool about now is that a lot of kids like seem to really like documentaries because there's like access. But back then it was like you had PBS, which is a lot of what I watched, and that was like the production company. I was working for a production company that made documentaries for PBS. But you don't have it wasn't like now where you have so much more access. So I didn't even think of documentary until I was like at a production company, and then I was like, this is what I need to do. So
And I mean, the PBS, documentaries are a very specific style that, Netflix is totally different. So you're right. It's definitely more access. I feel like the form has changed too, which is interesting.
yeah, it's changed so much. Like I even sometimes I reflect on it. I'm like, yeah, like the form has changed so much. And when I started, I wanted to make documentaries like what I had seen, like those PBS documentaries. And now, yeah, documentaries there's such a variety. There's so many approaches now, and it's cool to see.
Kind of changing more to like your philosophy, I guess, on film in general. You've built a successful career as a director, but I'm sure that's come with some challenges. So I'm curious what sacrifices or lessons that you've experienced to attain your season of harvest.
It's funny. There's so many. I'm still learning them. I think there's a lot of access now, not enough, but there's a lot more than there was for, Black women and Black people in general, women of color in general. But it still, comes with a lot of challenges. I think the hard lesson to learn is that even once the door is open and you walk through the door, now there's like a whole set of stairs you have to walk up. There are a lot of challenges because for me as a director, you're leading a team of people and, comes with a lot of challenges when if you are a Black woman or if you look young or, whatever. And it's really important to sharpen your voice and to, kind of like really own your voice. I think what I've had to learn is that in order to be a good collaborator, you have to have a sharp voice, but you also have to know when to compromise and when to be stubborn. And there are times for both. And this is a really hard lesson to learn because sometimes you can get swayed by people or you can feel like, oh, like the way that you can feel like the way to collaborate is just to create an amalgam of what everyone wants, but that's not actually what good collaboration is, because very often you'll just create something that feels like it has no vision. So you need to really know like when you need to dig your heels in and when you're like, actually no, you have a better idea, like that's great, like let's do that, forget what I was saying, we need to do this. And it involves like really letting go this like worry and stress about like, am I being right? People are looking at me. What are they going to say? What if they am I right or wrong? You have to kind of let that go and really just say, does this serve the project? How does this serve what we're doing? And, the project is king, for lack of a better word. The project is everything. So like put my ego aside, what does this serve? And yeah, because a good collaboration is like, it's as cliche as it is really the foundation of like any good project. Like anything you look at, and every time I say this all the time when I'm finishing a project, I look at what we've created and I'm like, all I see is what everybody collaborated. I'm like, I remember when this person came up with this and this is how great I remember when this came from this, it's so you really, but it takes a lot of like, you really have to work on your skills as a collaborator, I would say. And sometimes it means like people aren't going to be happy with you and you have to accept that and be fine with it. I've also learned, I think, and I'm still learning, that because if you are being ruled by this idea that like, the project is king, it can be easy to forget to have like life balance, like that's, I think, something that is challenging, especially with documentary is so consuming because it's not always easy to plan, like around like something's happening, you have to pick up and go. And I've learned that balance can come in a lot of forms. It doesn't always have to be like day-to-day balance. Like today, I'm going to stop work at this time and I'm going to, sometimes it means like sprinting a little and then taking a break. I don't know if that's great advice for everybody, but I do find that like sometimes you have to lean in more, but you do also have to like give yourself rest when you can.
Rest is key. I agree.
Rest is key.
You kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'm curious if you have any specific advice for young Black filmmakers that are looking to enter the industry.
People always say that you should network, network, network. And I think that is absolutely true, but I feel like they need to finish the sentence. I think that networking in a lot of ways really looks like actual community. Like it looks like being in community with people, because a lot of the time, like if people will kind of reach out to you cold, and again, you're like in this like whirlwind of like, I have a project here, I have a project there, I have a project, blah, blah, blah. And it's hard to like, I cannot tell you how many times I've been like, wait, I forgot to respond to this thing, But the people who are in my vicinity, who are in my community, who are in kind of like the ecosystem it's so easy to just, to collaborate and to put them up for things. And, that's how, my mentor, Gita Ganbir, that's how we started working together. I was working for her and Sam Pollard as their associate producer. And she knew that I was directing a short at the time for the New York Times. And she was like, oh, Sam, like, let's collaborate. And the way it worked was that, like, sometimes if she couldn't be on set, she would be like, can you fill in for me? And then I'd be like, yeah, sure. And then, it kind of was like this, for kind of like a symbiotic kind of like partnership. It wasn't a partnership yet, but it was this symbiotic dynamic where it, like, I filled a gap, in some ways. And then it kind of grew from there. And then we started co-directing, and then we, so I think that is really, really key, because it's so much input now, and it's so many people. And the other day I got an email of somebody looking for field producers, and I was like, wait, who? I was trying to remember. I was like, wait, somebody just mentioned this to me. Who? Somebody just said they wanted to field produce. Who? So it's, if you're like, as much as people, if we can all be like kind of in community, I think it's really, really great.
You'll remember those people when those opportunities come up. No, that makes sense. Kind of going back a little bit, I'm curious, what kinds of topics do you gravitate towards when you're, looking for a new project?
I definitely gravitate toward projects that are about some form of social justice, which is like a very, very broad category. But I think what I really feel, it's not even that I look for, but what I really feel like I can lend my eye to are projects where it's almost like, it's like I love to focus on from a POV of people who are kind of taking matters into their own hands. I think it really resonates with me personally, and that's been a thread through all of my work. It's been like people who see an issue, they're dealing with like the very, very large, these very, very, well, I should say they're up against these very, very large amorphous institutions, like, and ideas and systemic racism, the prison industrial complex. And that we're all kind of confronting every day. And but I can tell a story from their POV that is really centered in like what they're doing. I think just personally, I find it very, not just inspiring, but also I think these are people that are incredible and that I know that the audience will really latch onto. And that's really exciting for me, because they deserve that, like, kind of eye on them, because of what they're doing. And I think I learned early on that the documentaries that I always loved were documentaries that felt like a very specific point of view. Like you're seeing it through somebody's, as opposed to this more like top down approach. It was sort of like this like grassroots focus of like people on the ground, in some cases knocking on doors. I just have always gravitated toward that, like kind of focus.
You've been in the industry for almost 15 years now. Is that right?
Yeah, almost
Yeah.
15. Yeah. Wow.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh, don't put a number on it. But with that obviously comes a lot of experience, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of change. And I'm curious, how you see the film and TV space, particularly documentaries, evolving in the future.
A lot of people are asking me this question about how is it evolving, and it's hard to answer. Because I think we're in a moment where everybody's asking themselves that question. I think it's always the thing of like post strikes, post like the actor strike, post COVID, in this like current, like what people are dubbing like the streaming bubble, like what is the future of documentary? And I'm not sure. I hope that it continues to grow and expand. And most of all, I hope that more and more Black people and people of color can join the industry, because some of my most of my favorite work has come from them in the past 15 years of my career. I really have, sometimes I have to stop and remember, like, I really have seen how much streaming has changed the industry and how much more content there is, but also how much more like really incredible and innovative work is being done because of streaming, because like there's more space to break what we thought were the rules. And so I hope to see more of that. I really, really hope. But yeah, it's a weird time, unfortunately.
So the last two questions I have, one is kind of a big high level one, and then one fun one to end on. So the first one is, why is art important?
Okay. I'm going to steal a quote from somebody who recently said this to me in New Orleans, and I am stealing it. So he said that he had a hat. On the hat was a quote that said the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. And I was like, yeah, that is it. It just like really stuck with me because I was like, what is there a better reminder of, why I do what I do and why we all do what we do? So, yeah, I love that quote.
I have to add that to my quote list. That's a great one.
You have a quote list too?
Yes, I was obsessed with them when I was younger. I've fallen off, but every so often I add a new one. And the last one, the fun question is, what's your guilty pleasure? Either music, film, TV, the one thing that you never admit to in public, and when did you first find it?
Okay, I have two, but I can't say I don't admit it in public because people know this about me. But my two guilty pleasures are puzzles, 100%. Yeah, my house is filled with puzzles. It's like a thing. I'm trying to give them away. I'm literally planning how many I can give away for the holiday season.
How many do you
Um,
have?
oh, like
You're like, I don't know.
I haven't counted lately. I'm always buying more. I posted a puzzle wall on my Instagram like a few months ago, and it was just like all my boxes of puzzles stacked up, and it was
Wow.
like, yeah. So, and my other one is musicals. So nerdy on two levels, but yeah. And music, I think puzzles are kind of like a COVID thing that never died, that never left me. And musicals was like since I was like 4. But I think that's why Harlem Ice was so fun, because in some places we kind of approached it like it was a musical, because it was like this opportunity that you kind of don't often get in documentary. You're usually trying to avoid like needle drop. You're trying to avoid popular music, but Disney was like, please put some in. So I just like ripped a bunch of them from my playlist, and it was just the best. So
Benefits of working with Disney. That's amazing.
yeah,
Very
yeah, it
cool.
was it was it was very fun.
I
But
too am a musical theater person, so I have to know, what's your favorite of all time and what's like next on your list to see?
oh my gosh. I can't say I don't know what my favorite of all. I like every single one for it's like
You
I
have a
don't
top 3 though.
it's like I can't even say a top 3. It's so odd too. Like it's so random. Oh my god. I'm going to think about it after this and be like, I should have said this. I don't have a top 3. I have a mix of like every popular one and then like a few random ones thrown in there. What I want to see next is, well, everything's ending because of the Tonys, but I really want to see Gypsy. I wanted to see Audra McDonald on Gypsy, but I didn't get a chance. I want to see Death Becomes Her. I want to see what else. I had a whole list. Those I think are my top 2 to see.
Did you see Sunset Boulevard?
No, I
I
didn't.
didn't. Okay.
Did you?
I did. I went to see both because I wanted to see. I knew that it was shaping up to Audra versus Nicole, so I wanted to see both.
Oh.
I,
So you
I
saw
thought
Gypsy?
I did see Gypsy.
How was it?
It was really good. I will say though, while her acting was phenomenal, I didn't love her voice for Rose's
Hmm.
turn.
Okay.
But I think I saw it in like November, and by the time she got to the Tonys, I really liked what she did there. It sounded different
Yeah.
from when I saw it. So
Oh, interesting.
yes.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay.
I wasn't at Sunset Boulevard. Nicole sounded great. But I didn't like the show itself, like the storyline. I thought was kind of not that
Hmm.
interesting.
Okay.
I got a little bored. Like it was cool the set and not having a set, but then I was like, okay,
Yeah.
could we have a little bit of an outfit change,
Yeah.
something? It was like 2 hours in the black slip. I was like, all right,
You're like, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But
What's your favorite thing that you've seen like recently? Musical.
musical, I think that was Sunset the last thing I saw, and that was like in April. I think Sunset Boulevard might have been the last thing I saw. Actually, really liked Hell's Kitchen. I saw
Oh,
that.
I haven't seen Hell's Kitchen.
Wasn't what I expected. I thought it was going to be like Fame and she was going to be in high school and we were going to see her learning the piano and all of that, but it was really more about like the character like developing into a young woman and her relationship with her mom, and there's like a police brutality element going on. So it was not about school at
Oh,
all. It was more about like womanhood and sexuality and growing up. It was very interesting. I liked it.
wow.
I would
Okay.
recommend that one.
Okay. Okay. I'm still getting back into the theater after, even though it's been like 5 years since COVID, but
I still wear my mask inside, so I get it.
yeah, yeah. It's like weird. It's hard to get back into the full swing of things. Like,
Mhm.
but okay. Okay.
And I don't know if you're a Michael Jackson fan, but MJ, that's like one of my top ones.
Really?
Yeah. I
It
was very
lives up to it?
skeptical. Yes. I was
And is
so
it I
skeptical.
think I saw that actor on TikTok and he was like singing like Michael Jackson versions of like songs and I was like, this is genius. Like I was like this I was it was amazing. And I was like, is this him? Is this Michael?
He like
Wow.
does a good job. And it's like a fine line of like not being cartoonish, right? Because you don't want to seem like an
Yeah.
impersonator. But I was skeptical because my mom, she's a big MJ fan. So we were all like, I don't know if we want to see it. And then we saw it. We're like, okay, it was good.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
I like
But
that. I have a
another one
list.
for your list.
Okay. I love that.
Thank you so much again for joining us on the Real Sisters African Voices podcast. We look forward to seeing you in October and giving you the Trailblazer Award for Real Sister.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You have been listening to The Harvest podcast by African Voices. We would love to hear from you. Send us your comments, your questions, suggestions for future interviews in our next edition. Follow us on social media and visit our website at africanvoices.com. Until next time, what are you harvesting? Thanks for listening.